Well, good morning to Uber Tuberubers and Tuberettes alike around the known universe and other places too. I don't know what places those would be if they're not in the universe, but never mind that. It's a short talk on the porch step with an old guy. I just got back from VI, had a breakfast down there. You know, I was observing the plate today because I was so bummed out a couple of weeks ago when I went in there with that senior skillet thing. Give me a break. It was a plate of potatoes with an egg in the middle. When I started looking around at today's breakfast, now it was a senior omelet. It was a good omelet, but big old slug of potatoes, bread, the toast. So I thought, this is mostly carbs. But then I thought, well, our ancestors basically survived on bread and potatoes. I mean, in one way or another. I guess whether you were in Ireland or not, I don't know. I really don't know whether potatoes were really exported or whatever. But anyway, a lot of bread. A lot of the medieval era, the daily food, the daily bread was lots of times bread. That was it. So anyway, I wanted to talk with you some today, and I tried to make a couple of videos yesterday, and I vetoed them. I just looked at them later and went, I don't think so, bub. And the thing is that the context of this framework here, the context of the framework, shut up. The idea behind these videos is to kind of communicate that good news still exists, that the great God of the Bible, who has spoken once into history and has preserved that word now for thousands of years. You don't think humans wanted to erase the Bible? You don't think the devils wanted to make that thing go away and be forgotten? All through those years, century after century, the Bible has stood the test, and it's still the most popularly sold book in the world. The Lord God has spoken. And so when you think about the 66, and don't get started on the Roman Catholic Apocrypha, please. Just leave that stuff alone. That didn't become canon until about 400 or 500 years ago. I don't think so. But plus it had to do with Trent and all that other stuff. Never mind. The day, as I was thinking about it today, it was like, there's a sense, I think, for us, I'm still thinking about maybe trying to, get that big deal with the new name for the soap opera, As the World Turns, Your Stomach and Mine. Just watching these antics, I tried to look at some of the YouTube algorithm this morning, and I just thought, I'm just not up for it right now. The world is just falling apart into a kind of an insane mess. And it's like the end of Western civilization, and nobody's supposed to say a thing or something. Anyway, I got to thinking about it. I thought, what's the one thing that the clanging cymbal, that constant alarm? Have you ever noticed, like car alarms, when they first came out, there was supposed to be hot stuff, right? That way your car will never get stolen. And within a really brief period of time, probably just a few months, people were already conditioned. When you hear a car alarm, what do? Ignore it. You don't do anything. Those things are always going off. Who cares? And so the security idea kind of went kerflunk. But you get sort of like reverse results out of what you ostensibly intended. And that's kind of the way our lives are, because essentially the thing that I hear is the thing that is not said, by and large. In other words, I hear the quiet spots. I hear the things that should be there, at least I think so, and there's not only never a word about it, it's like the topic doesn't even exist. And I thought, so, how would you describe your little sojourn down here on Earth? Well, frankly, it's kind of this anti-God or un-God zone. What? And so, in other words, the idea of the Almighty, the eternal God, the one who has named himself, I am that am. He's given that name that we might call upon him. And of course, what do we do with that? We hustle it up and bustle it up and then call it L-O-R-D in caps. So that's the way it appears an awful lot of times in our Bibles. The translators, for some reason or another, blinked on that one and decided to not name the name, even though the name was in the text. It was for our own good, don't you know? But in this sort of ungod or anti-God zone, we end up with a political question. Should we have a war or not? We end up with, you know, more political questions. Should we have an orange man or an old senile fart as the president? And you get divided, you get drawn aside, right? Polarization. But what's the one thing that's never said? What's the one thing that, you know, should be at the baseline of our thought or our ambition or motivation? How should we be seeing the world around us? And I really have a hard time with this because I get sucked right into this vortex of more data, more information, more words on top of words, more conflicting opinions. But what's the thing that's never said? This entire plenum, this sphere of reality that we're currently in, you know, the real one, he owns it. And moment by moment, each moment is itself unique. It will never happen again. And in those moments, he's giving us opportunity to reorient ourselves as if he really did exist, as if he really had spoken, and that's the sane and sober understanding of what really happened. Christian religion isn't about some mystical sense necessarily of, you know, kind of like I'm floating or I glow in the dark or something. It is a firm conviction that the reality that's actually here in our midst and we're in it, he owns that stuff. He built this moment. He gave us our lives and gave us the time span with it, moment by moment, each moment unique. And he owns them all, and he's present in the entire sphere, all throughout and within. And we walk around, and to listen to humans talk, not only is either that's untrue or it's completely irrelevant. It doesn't have anything to do with the real stuff that we're really involved with, which is a nice way of saying that basically we're a bunch of idolaters, but we're so idolatrous that we don't even recognize our own idols. We think they're real. So I just thought, well, you know, it's a Sunday, and I wanted to make a video about the good news of the gospel. On a Sunday morning, you know, let's proclaim the king, the captain, let's brag up Jesus. This guy, I mean, people get excited at a Donald Trump rally, at a Jesus rally, they'll blow your socks off. I mean, really frank, open, and realistic worship of this one. I mean, Jesus is that big and bigger. And so we have this kind of reality quotient where suddenly, you know, the faith isn't about, I believe irrational things and talk to invisible people, and I'm okay with that, and I hope you are too. The faith is the real reality that we actually walk in. He owns it. And he owns our bodies too. At best, we would be slaves, but he has freed us from that status and has granted to us a new status, a new kind of carriage or person, a new creation. He's starting over in us, and in this new sense, we're children of the Father. We're family. We belong here. We're warmly welcomed. And in Abraham's day, he saw so clearly. He believed. He had true faith. And what did he say? That my reward is essentially you, sir. He ask what I want, ask what could be given, ask what could be had. Do you want piles and piles of diamonds? Do you want platinum and gold? Do you want an entire universe? No, I don't want any of that. I want to sit at Jesus' feet, hear him speak. I want to follow him in the path that he's leading us in. And so, in other words, it has to do with what's really happening. and that's in your heart, that's in your spirit, and that's all around us too. So we've somehow split spirit off from reality, as if the two had really nothing to do with each other, sort of like two non-invasive spheres that just bounce off each other. And the reality is a little different, I think. Any of you would know. If you've ever dreamed a dream, if you've ever heard a real strong sense within you that maybe I should or shouldn't do something. In other words, we are in contact in the spirit, even when we're trying to ignore it and suppress it and deny it and defy it. it still breaks through. And so, people tell stories about ghosts and magic and all kinds of stuff. But our chronic uh, blind spot, Jesus used to call his own believers kind of like, you guys are a bunch of faith midgets. What's a faith midget? Like, why are you so small? Why can't your faith grasp that what we're talking about is real? So he is the master of reality, and he brings joy to your heart. He rearranges you from the inside, and he lives in you, and he's promised to be there forever. That's the gift of the Spirit. So on a Sunday morning, there is good news out there, even though, the whole Crazy Pants episode is still going on down here. The part that they'll never say, you are freed to say. God is in the middle of this. He will be glorified. He shall be acknowledged. Evil shall be destroyed and swept away. Christ shall be admired and freely worshiped for the true King and God he is in the flesh. It's going to happen in real time. It's future history, baby. It's like we've been given prophecy. And the church, at least my church, I think has walked away from prophecy in the church today, as if the office of prophet just went away. That's all. Unexplainable. Nothing about that in the Bible, but they're just disappeared. That's all. And that's because we don't know what prophecy really is. The book of the Revelation says it. Whoever bears the testimony of Christ Jesus, he's operating in the spirit of prophecy. We prophesy one coming, the same one who came in the past, by the way, and his promise is good and rock solid. So when we think about what the prophetic word is in our day, it isn't necessarily, well, I know when the end's going to be, or I know that this must occur, or X, Y, Z. The prophetic office is directed mainly at the rulers and saying, essentially, look, your land is under a curse, and lawfully so, rightly so, because you have offended your maker. You have lied. You have committed all kinds of sexual and blasphemous sins. The people are deluded. They have forgotten the name of God, and this is on you, the leaders. And because of that, there's a curse upon the land, and because of that, you will flounder. You see, that doesn't necessarily have dates and times involved, but it's the church speaking as an ambassador for the King of Heaven to the powers of earth. Now hear this, earth. You are the property of the King. And the sooner you get used to it, the better off you'll be, but you can't change it no matter what you do. And if you fight it, I guarantee you'll lose. That's the office of prophet, at least in part, okay? That's an old fart's opinion. Take that to the bank, I guess. And the bank will go, we don't want that stuff. Get it out of here. So listen for what's not said. Listen for what people refuse to mention. All of this right now, moment by moment, our lives, the history, the crazy political developments, the scandals, the disgusting garbage, all of the inspiring stories. Go listen to a couple of stories one for Israel. Jewish folks who, growing up hating and defying Jesus, suddenly meet him in person, and it rocks their world, spins them right around, and turns them into believers. And it's a supernatural transition. It's not like some philosophical discourse thing that I just sat down and polished up. Something happened to me. Something changed in my heart. At one point, I tell you, I thought I was losing my mind. There's a prophetic word that for he who calls upon the name of the Lord, he shall be saved. Well, there's that name thing again. Well, I didn't know God's name. All I knew he was called God. And I had this terrific dream. And in the dream, I was in this crevasse, it was like being in a crack in between two huge rocks or a very small tunnel or something. And I was way deep. I could just see a little bit of light way up overhead. There was people up there, and they knew I was in trouble. And they tried to help. They sent down a rope like a noose. I'd take a hint. But really what the idea was, all I needed to do in the dream was stick my right arm up through the noose, lock it in here, and I could be pulled out. But the crevasse was so tight, I couldn't move my arm. It was so frustrating. The answer was right here in front of me. Put your arm in there, go. And I began to flip in the dream. And I simply called out, God, help me. And I might have been talking in my sleep. Anyway, I rose with a start. It was like when you dive into a swimming pool deep off the high dive, and then you roll and you begin to swim vertically uphill, so to speak. Swimming uphill. It was like that coming out of that dream. And when I woke up in my bed, I felt like, oh my gosh, what happened? And it felt like someone had reached their hand right in here near my solar plexus, reached up and kind of went, yeah, gotcha. I was hooked. I didn't know what happened to me, and I thought, frankly, I'm losing my mind. But I've never been the same since that day. Something happened to me. He came and he found me in the dark where I was hiding, and he's pulled me out. He's changing me day by day. But our testimony is not about my faith. My testimony is about the dramatically good, the dynamically real, the personal and good. I just don't know how else to describe Jesus other than to say he rocks balls. He's the best ever at infinite range. And he cares for individual losers, failures, Basically, I used to kind of describe myself as just a disappointment with a pair of feet attached. But he takes the off-scouring of the world, the nobodies of the world, and he adopts them, and he calls them his own. He will not be denied, and he will not be defied. His marriage table ceremony, that huge dinner, it shall be full. He's rounding up the most unsuspecting. In other words, you might not ever guess that some of these folks who are coming into the kingdom are candidates in the first place. That's how you can tell something new's happening. So get on down to church, find a place where you can testify about the glory of the Lamb. The good news is that he's come and he's coming again, and that we're safely in his hands today. He's transforming us, he's rebuilding us, he's giving us life. There is something to be glad about. There is something to look forward to. And it has nothing to do with what you or I can build. And that makes me feel real confident. Because if I had a hand in it, I know it'd be another damn mess. It's good to see you again. Thanks for listening. Have a good Sunday. Get on down to church. I know if you don't want to go, I don't blame you. Frankly, I don't want to go myself. But I feel somehow it's the right thing to do. It's like going to the dentist, I guess. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.